Season 3's carked it, so let's recap the important bits. Voyager's still trying to make its way back to the Alpha Quadrant, despite having technically succeeded once, but that wasn't intentional, so Captain Braxton called a mulligan on it. Of course, you could argue that getting back to the Alpha Quadrant has become increasingly unnecessary, given how many things from there we keep finding along the way. Perpetual thorn in our side Seska has finally gone and done a dead, though that didn't stop her from coming back for an episode, and the Kazon are out of our hair too. Why don't we look at the crew and see how things have panned out for them? Captain Janeway's still not had any backstory, but we did get a little look into her analytical mind in the episode Sacred Ground. We also saw a guns blazing variant of her in Macrocosm, which, whilst feeling somewhat at odds with the scientist persona, was an entertaining enough little bug hunt. More interestingly, we've ended the series with her entering very morally questionable territory by potentially facilitating genocide. This conflict of interest is something I've wanted for a little while, so it's satisfying to see some of it come to the forefront. First Officer Chakotay's had a slightly better shake of the stick this season, but still not what you'd expect from the second-in-command. He got to do some action hero stuff in Displaced and something a bit more complicated in Unity, but he's been otherwise underutilized, and we've not learned anything more about the character. That said, I like that he's the person pushing back against Janeway's choices, albeit privately, in the season finale. Alter Ego and Rise gave us not only a decent look at our Chief of Security, but also a look at the core of Vulcan identity and, rather more curiously, its limitations. That examination of the potential negatives that devotion to logic can bring helps make the character a little more relatable, something we've struggled with to date. You could also argue we've explored a bit of his backstory in Flashback, though, if we're being honest, that episode only exists as an excuse for Sulu. Resident douchebag Tom Paris hasn't had a great deal of attention focused on him after missing out on an opportunity to be likeable last season. The bits that do give him some screen time show him as almost decent. The episode Shoot gave Robert Duncan McNeil a chance to go in some less dickish directions by making his character vulnerable, and Blood Fever almost makes him admirable as he resists around 85% of his urge to jump B'Elanna. Progress, then, of a sort. You're a curious one, Kim. An entire episode dedicated to your backstory, only not really. We end the episode Favourite Son not only knowing nothing more about him, but also having lost out on the chance to make him more interesting. I said in the summary of that video that Kim is less a character and more somebody that things happen to, and looking back on this season, the only appearance which refutes that even slightly is Shoot. Even then, he's mainly just reacting to the things that other people are doing. For the third season running, most of Kim's scenes could have been replaced with an extra, and it wouldn't really have mattered. Roxanne Dawson got a chance in Remember to be more than just the one who provides engineering MacGuffins when the plot requires them. It's one of this season's highlights and deals tactfully with a difficult topic, helped in no small part by her performance. Outside of that, the episode Displaced shows us glimpses of struggles with both her heritage and her ability to let down her guard. This examination of her vulnerabilities helps to show her as more than just the fighty one. The Doc was let off his leash this season, in the physical sense of the term too. The addition of a mobile holo-emitter, which I still think should have been detected by Timecop Braxton by the way, has given him the freedom to do more than be in sickbay. As to the character, we've seen him trying to express a unique personality with opera and a bungled attempt to explore domestic bliss, the latter giving us an insight into the limited nature of his understanding and attitudes towards relationships. Oh, and Robert Picardo got the chance for a little fun in Darkling, even if it did feature some of the worst dialogue this season. Jennifer Lien got a similar chance for evil giggles in Warlord. My opinion on the needless sexualization aside, it provided Kez with an opportunity to go full psychic shenanigans and deal with the psychological aftermath of having used that power. She's also the character who had the most significant change this season, ending a relationship, exploring others, and entering what accounts for a compen middle age. I suppose we could laugh at the most character progress being given to the one who's about to leave, but it's better than nothing at all. The end of his relationship with Kez and the removal of that unpleasant possessiveness makes Neelix a little easier to stomach. We also address the elephant in the room of him continuing to be a guide after such a large distance has been covered. The start of Macrocosm, with its nod towards his diplomatic skills and honorary title of ambassador, opened the doors for a chance to expand into other areas, and addressing his fears of obsolescence in fair trade both makes him more relatable and gave us a quick glimpse of his checkered past. And that's how things stand. The main thread of the season has been the burgeoning B'Elanna-Paris romance subplot, with an interesting nod during the episode Displaced to their mutual defensive nature, albeit in different forms. A point to the show here for highlighting their flaws whilst also trying to sell them to the audience. As much as I don't really care for romance, they're probably the best chance for an interesting match on the ship. We should probably also note that the standout episodes in this season, as in the last, are the ones that don't really touch on Voyager's journey to the Alpha Quadrant. Both Remember and Distant Origins largely sidestep the established purpose of the show, just as Death Wish and Meld did in Season 2. For all of my desire to focus on growth and development, it would be churlish of me to not see the irony in me liking these episodes the most. Perhaps there's a lesson in there somewhere about a show either properly committing to long plot threads, or ignoring them entirely. All of which may shortly be rendered irrelevant. Big changes are afoot, and a shake-up of the standard formula is incoming. Will we follow the new Coke method of improving things, or will this actually be good? Join me as we dive in to find out, and, once again, thank you to all who've enlisted on the good ship Pedant so far. I'm still taken aback by the support you've shown, and hope you continue to enjoy these in the future. End of summary. Speaking of support, there have been some changes over on our Patreon page. Membership tiers now start at $1, and there's a new reward for the Commander and above ranks. Introducing the Wheel of Names! In future episodes, we might choose to roll out the wheel whenever a new minor character is introduced. Whatever it lands on will be the new name of that character, and those names will be suggested by patrons of Commander tier and above. What better way to immortalize your pet, family member, or nemesis than having a bit player in a quarter-century-old TV show named after them? And if you want to be puerile and suggest Stinky McBumhole, well, who the hell am I to judge? The patron who suggested it will get a shout-out, mainly so I can dodge the blame, and free up one of their slots for another suggestion. Now, because this is the internet, there'll be some restrictions on what I'm willing to include, not least of which because YouTube's been getting very antsy on the swearing front, but we'll try and get what you want in, as long as you're not being a bigoted scumbag. Right, that's the boring bit over with. Proper silliness will resume in the next one. End of advert.